Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take the Black Live, the one and the only, still to this day, come at us podcast show that talks about things like sci-fi, fantasy, movies, TV, etc., and so forth. I'm Dan. He's Dan. We're Dan's. We're here to talk about it, get into it, and just tackle it. Thanks for everybody coming here today. Hello, Andrew. Hello, everyone else in the audience. Glad to see everyone. Feel free to chat us up. We love talking to you guys throughout the show. And as Andrew accurately says, a lot of exciting news today. Would you say that accurately describes the state of the world today, Daniel?
I would say yes. I would say Andrew's on point. Man, I need to up my energy. That was a very energetic intro. I'm here for it. I'm ready for the news. There's so much to discuss. And we're finally back into the groove with our regular shows starting last week. Now that all these holidays and New Year's and all these other things have happened. Hey there, Rick Garfield in the chat. Good to see you. Dan, how are you doing? And what are you excited to talk about today?
Okay. I'm excited to talk about first. Literally, like a minute before we started, we saw some new news. Hey, Julie. We saw some new news about the Game of Thrones showrunners, Benioff and Weiss, saying what they would have changed about Game of Thrones. We'll get to that in a second. But first, why
Yes.
don't we go over quickly the thing that everyone cares about more and more each year it happens, the Emmy Awards. That magical time
Wow.
every year when the rich and famous of Hollywood get together in an auditorium and spend 3.5 hours handing out little golden statues to each other. Um, my
That is quite a way to frame it.
relationship with the Emmys is, or award shows in general. I used to really like award shows, and then the older I got,
Mhm.
the sillier they seemed to me. And now I did watch this whole award show because they promised a Game of Thrones cast reunion because they were doing like this little send-ups and like bits about like classic shows. Like they had the Sopranos cast reunite and the cast of Ally McBeal of all things reunite. Gotta have that Ally McBeal stuff. And there was kind of a Game of Thrones tribute, but no, there wasn't. It was just it was at the very end. It was literally the last award, so I had to watch the entire thing to get
The
to it.
closer.
It was the closer. It was the award for best drama, and it was Coast Anthony Anderson, who looked like he did a good job, wearing like a Game of Thrones roby thing next to a prop of the Iron Throne and welcoming Peter Dinklage onto the stage to give out the award for best drama. It's cute, totally cute. I'm like, that is not a cast reunion. That is not a tribute. They rebuilt the Cheers set and had like Ted Danson and Rhea Perlman and the guys who played Norm and the dumb mailman all come back, and they did a little bit. And so for the Game of Thrones tribute to be an Iron Throne prop and Peter Dinklage is here was about all we got. Which is
Yep.
fine. All I'm saying is if I'd known that was the case, I'm not sure. I sat through like 3 hours for that.
Well, that's exactly why they framed it the way they did as a reunion event thingy to get you to watch through to the end. Love this note you have here in our podcast outline, taking you guys behind the magic here. At no point was Dinklage in the frame with the Iron Throne prop. So this, I think, pretty fairly made you salty, it sounds like. And
Oh
yeah,
my God.
I kind of rolled my eyes when they first said they were doing recreations of scenes. I was
It's kind of
obviously a
cool.
little skeptical because that
Uh-huh.
sounds like the sort of thing people would say in a press release, but then would probably end up being much smaller than anyone imagines in the actual show, which it sounds like was the case, at least for Game of Thrones here. So
Oh
sorry
man.
to you and everyone else who watched all 3 hours just for the Game of Thrones tribute. But we love you, Peter Dinklage. So good job.
It was fun. He also quoted his again of all things when he's giving out the award, he quoted his famous slash infamous speech about why Bran should be king, whereas who has a better story than these 8 nominees was basically the gist of it. Where he kind of talked about just nothing more powerful than a story. No enemy can defeat it. And it's just funny because that speech is, I think, among the Game of Thrones fandom, or at least there's a meme where people don't like it very much, and that's the one they're repurposing. But of course, it's about like how important storytellers are. So of course, a room full of Hollywood folk would eat up a
Yeah.
spoon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the right choice. I don't know what's a better speech from Game of Thrones to use than that. And that is, like you said, that was the self-referential moment of the final season where they basically nodded to we're making art and how cool is that? And a lot of shows do this. It's not just Game of Thrones. But yeah, that one does have a particularly thorny history with the fans who hated Bran. I am not one of them. I personally like that scene. So good for you, Peter Dinklage. I hope that you enjoyed getting to revisit those lines for this very contextually appropriate moment. Um,
Yeah. And the
yeah,
show itself was fine. The Emmys ended up being Succession got 6 awards, including Best Drama. Peter Dinklage read it out. Good for him, which I think is deserved.
no
I mean, we
surprise.
all expected it. There are really no surprises. The Bear got 6 awards for Best Comedy, sure. And some action stuff in that. And then
Sure.
Beef. That's part of the reason award shows seem so silly. It's like the line between comedy and drama feels very arbitrary. Like what about the bear is funny? But okay, fine. And then Beef got a
Well,
bunch too.
yeah, I
Go
think that
on.
some of these, I think that some of, the distinctions, not to say that there aren't times where it's like legit comedies in some of these and stuff like that, but it almost seems to me like a way that they can give out more awards to more of these different types of shows, because like no way was The Bear going to beat Succession. It's an award worthy show. But yeah, comedy definitely feels like a misnomer. That's not how I would describe that show, even though it has some funny moments. Like, not the point at all. Uh, but yeah, Julie says she was disappointed with you, Dan. So you weren't alone. Watched it
Oh,
all for the Game of Thrones tribute too, and was so disappointed.
she's right. He did walk past it like kind of with a thing in front of his face, like trying to ignore it, which was I don't know. There's a lot to unpack. But that happened. It was the Emmys, and now they're over. They're apparently the least watched
Yes.
Emmys in the history of the award show, so everyone else must feel similarly to me that they're not very interesting.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
moving,
Andrew says he had forgotten they even happened. You're not the
who
only one,
cares?
apparently. They really did. I don't know if it's just because I'm not watching cable or what, but I feel like they didn't know real like promo for the fact that the awards show was happening. Like, I don't know where I could have watched it aside from, I guess, YouTube. And I didn't see like a single ad for it before it happened. So yeah, I'm not, it's no surprise that it is the least watched Emmy. So
Yeah,
what can you do?
the fashion
Julie
is
likes
fun.
it for the fashion. Yeah, the fashion is fun. Coleman Domingo looked like a boss. That's my takeaway from the fashion. He had like a big yellow getup.
Cool. But let's move on from the Emmys. And maybe we'll be back here for the Oscars later. Unfortunately. And let's talk about some juicy stuff that spilled out some House of the Dragon stuff. So Matt Smith, who plays Daemon Targaryen, large, angry, blonde niece enthusiast, Daemon Targaryen, went on some kind of radio talk show, the Zoe Ball Breakfast Show, and basically
Yes.
and said he was asked when will House of the Dragon season 2 be out, and he said August, I think. I think summer, this summer, yeah. I've not seen any of it yet, but we finished filming
Yeah.
this last year, so we got to do ADR and all that business. So he said August. So House of the Dragon 2, House of the Dragon season 2 out in August of 2024. Confirmed, not quite, but it seems pretty likely that's when this first season debuted in August of 2023. So I'm not shocked that Matt Smith would accidentally, purposefully, or otherwise just say August. And I can take it as not gospel, but at least like one of the other books of the Bible that got tossed out.
I don't know the Bible, so I couldn't tell you which ones those are, but yes, they're there. Somewhere in the Dead Sea, maybe. Yeah, if Matt Smith is saying August, these things can change, obviously. HBO could decide tomorrow that it fits their schedule better to roll it out in July or whatever, and they would adjust. But I think that feels like a pretty safe thing to expect. If we have
Yeah.
an actor like Matt Smith saying August, Nicole says boo August, and yeah, that's fair. I know we all want it sooner, but it does kind of line up with when the first season came out 2 years ago. And yeah, so then they're doing the same thing basically. Has it always been this way that like August into September is like the prime slot for a show? Because like
No, I think
Wheel of
Game of
Time
Thrones
did
used to do it
that
in like
last
May.
year. Yeah, it did. It did, right? Like April and May.
Hmm.
Um, but the past few years, we've had like a big fantasy show in this August to September slot. Um, so that I think that I'm excited. That gives us all summer to get hype, and it's gonna be a good time.
Uh, pretty. Yeah, I can accept it. I know that Nicole says boo August. I imagine just because it's far away. Part of me does wish
Yeah.
they would release this stuff during like a colder months. Like over the weekend in
Me
Chicago, it
too.
was like negative 10 degrees with the wind. Like I can't leave my house without putting on like a suit of armor, more or less, and like 13 scarves and a giant hat. And like it's a great time to sit inside and like be taken away to another fantasy place. But the
Yeah.
summer, I guess, will be fine too.
Yeah, I always did like the Thrones kind of slot of the late winter into spring. But hey, House of the Dragon apparently is a summer slash fall show, and maybe that's more appropriate because we're not up at the wall here. Am I the only one who it's like, if the temperature is going to be vastly different, like, I don't know, is that seasonally appropriate? Like, I'll watch The Last of Us in the winter, but do I want to watch people go to war outside Rook's Rest where it's all nice and sunny? Probably. I don't know
Really?
who I'm kidding. Nah, let's
I
just
hadn't
ignore
thought about
everything
that.
I just said. It's nonsense. But
Okay,
yeah, so
it does make me want to psychoanalyze you, but that's another thing we do off camera. Um,
yes.
Nicole's with me, but we'll see it sooner or later, probably August. Good for it. And finally, before we leave Westeros, we have to talk briefly about this Hollywood Reporter article that just dropped, or rather, I think an excerpt, because the other week, the Hollywood Reporter talked to David Benioff and Weiss, the Game of Thrones showrunners, about a
Mhm.
lot. They talked to them about their new
Yeah.
show, Three Body Problem. They talked to them about their aborted Star Wars trilogy. And of course, they stuck in some Game of Thrones questions. And they just put out a new article where they kind of excerpt this bit where they ask them if you could change one thing about Game of Thrones, what would it be? And like they clearly want them to say something about, I don't know, the end, which so many people found so objectionable. Like we would have made Bran not king, or we would have had Daenerys thing, or we would have brightened up the lighting. But Benioff and Weiss clearly, I think, having some fun and being clever and just kind of not answering the question they want
Yeah.
them to answer. Said they would have had more of Mord the jailer. Remember that guy? He was the
I love this answer.
dim-witted. It's a good answer, like a dim-witted guard who slapped Tyrion around when he was a prisoner in the Eyrie in the first season. I think he like
Yeah.
spoke in
Sky
clipped, not
cells.
full sentences. And just had a feelings between them. Tyrion had to convince him to take him up to the throne room or the Eyrie, whatever you call them, the Eyrie. And he was just a big dumb, and then he got a lot of money at the end. Oh, I'm putting it
Yes,
together.
he did.
And then,
Yes. Yeah, that's what
yeah, I'm just now getting why they're saying this. Yeah, they were
yeah.
saying it was a mistake not to bring Mord the jailer back into it. According to Weiss, we always talked about doing it. They even had a scene in mind where they would be in a tavern and Mord would be in the background as the owner of the tavern. And I'm just now thinking, oh, it's because he got all the money at the end from Tyrion, that he went out and he bought a
Yes.
small business. Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, I think that's hilarious. So the Mord scene from A Game of Thrones, I've always loved that scene. That's like classic George R. R. Martin like wit at work. That scene where this jailer is just belligerently, beating Tyrion, and Tyrion's cracking jokes the whole time. And yeah, their idea was we could have have had the actor in the background acting exactly the way he did as a jailer, except now as a small business owner. It was such an obvious no-brainer day after idea, which, like, yeah, I could totally see that. It occurs to them after they filmed it, crap, we should have called that actor and had them, basically be an extra on set that day. Um, Man, the
Actor
thrones we could have had.
Kieran Birmingham, FYI.
Yeah. Yes, who I do not remember because they are just in that one episode, pretty
Of
much.
course.
Episode 5, I think, of the first season.
Nice. Just for Kieran. Mostly, I mean, yeah, it's cute, it's clever. Mostly I like how they are very purposefully not giving them the question they're fishing for, the answer they're fishing for. I think that's funny.
Yes.
And again, and they say in both articles that they're kind of avoiding commenting on Game of Thrones or criticizing it because they don't feel that would do any good, which I think is smart. Like the way they've, God, it's in because I remember the firestorm of hate that happened after the final season, and you didn't hear a thing from them. And I think looking back, that was 100% the right way to go. They really kind of insulated
No
themselves
doubt.
from all of that, talk to their real life relations. If people come up to them on the street and say something that's much more polite, they said that because they don't have the cloak of anonymity.
Hmm.
And they come out with their humor, with their sense of humor and professional integrity intact. Uh, Overall good on them. Because if they said anything, if they criticized anything, the legions of people who still revile their names as a killing word would take any whisper from their mouths of evidence of their malicious vendetta against good art and just let them have
Yeah.
it. So kind of remaining mum is a good strategy for if you're Benioff
I
and
think,
Weiss.
yeah, I think I really respect that they have done this, like, both in the past that they haven't really been very vocal, and that now they're just like, so what the article said, I assume they said this like off the record or something, that they didn't feel it would be really productive for them or for HBO or for the like thousands of people who worked on the show. Like, it would be kind
Yeah.
of disrespectful to be dissing it. And like, that's really smart and a really, I think, healthy way to navigate stuff like this and a really wise way to do it. So yeah, they were obviously fishing for, an answer. They obviously had a headline in mind asking them this, like what
Sure.
would you change about Game of Thrones? I didn't realize that this whole big Benioff and Weiss like interview and this Game of Thrones piece, which you can, if you want to hear us talk more about the Benioff and Weiss interview, listen to last week's episode if you're a listener and you haven't checked that one out. But it was done with James Hibbard, who he's
Hmm.
a longtime reporter who covered Game of Thrones for Entertainment Weekly. So Benioff and Weiss are like famously kind of reclusive with interviews, but I guess for James Hibbard they came out and talked up Mord the jailer. So yeah, good stuff. I enjoyed hearing from them again. I'm excited for their new show, Three Body Problem, in March.
I am too. In March, I wonder if they'll do more. I wonder if they'll talk to someone other than the Hib Master General because they should want to promote this new show. But we'll see. Yeah, good for them. And again, I'm very
Yeah.
curious to see. I just want to see what people say about the new show. I'm sure it'll be cool, fun online for a while. All right, Daniel. Anything else you want to talk about
Wait,
in
well, who
Westeros
will
before we
say?
move on? Hmm?
You want to hear what who will say about the new show? What
The
Benioff and
people,
Weiss will
the
say about Three Body
populace,
Problem?
the
Oh,
plebs.
the populace. You
Mhm.
want to see what the populace will say about Three Body Problem?
Yes, specifically in relation. I mean, about it in general, and also I want to see how the continuing narrative of Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and Weiss um, evolves and into a new era when they have a new show out. I want to see how much of the hate
Yeah.
from Game of Thrones is held over. I want to see how much dissipates. I want to see how many new narratives start to form. Um, I love observing the ever-changing nature of the psychic diaspora that is humanity's collective online conversation. I think it's fun.
Yes. Yeah. I think it'll be definitely interesting. It's nice that they're back in the game again. because, we've really only had a single show from David Benioff and Dan Weiss, and that is Game of Thrones. So, like, were they a one-hit wonder in terms of TV shows? Like, so far they have been. So I'm really excited for them to be back in the discussion. And like, I don't know, we all hate on Game of Thrones season 8 so much, but like they did so much good work on that show that, like, yeah, I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, I totally am. I thought they got way too much hate for my season of Game of Thrones, but that is a
Yeah.
done and dusted topic. Why don't we move on to some new shows that are popping around out there?
Yes. So you've been watching some, right? What have you been
Yeah.
watching, Dan? This is not our "What Are We Watching" segment. Let it be known. This is a different segment that is also about what we're watching. So
Yeah,
that's an important distinction.
this past Sunday, I'm not sure if you watched it. I watched the first episode of True Detective Night Country with Jodie Foster and
Okay,
Callie Rice. Did you watch it, Daniel?
cool.
I wasn't sure. I didn't get your
I haven't.
That's fine.
I'll be honest here. I'm not subscribed to Max right now, because it's been so
Really?
long since they've had a fantasy or sci-fi thing that, I mean, I can watch Rebel Moon over on Netflix. Why would I have Max? So no, I I haven't watched it yet. How was it? It did look really good.
I've always liked have you watched the other season of True Detective or one of the other ones or two or three?
I
Have
have
you ever
not
watched
seen
the show?
any seasons. I have
Okay,
not.
cool.
I won't lie. The
You don't gotta lie,
you
it's fine.
your review for this, I thought, was pretty on point, talking about how much the grizzled troubled detective solving stuff has been done. And I think that is, that's kind of like an eternal trope in our modern time. They can reinvent that as many ways as they want, and people will probably watch it. But no, so I haven't seen True Detective. Should I have seen True Detective? Am I missing out?
Hey, I want to see what the commenters tell Dan. Should he have seen True Detective? Um, yeah, I think it was worth watching. The first season was very, very good. Uh, oh, and Fantasy Fan didn't really care for it. Whole episode, a little bored and tired. And yeah,
Okay.
we can talk about that. I didn't see the second. I enjoyed the third. It really hasn't ever gotten past the first. The first was this like really interesting. It
Yeah.
was a straightforward detective show, but there was something different about A, it had the star power. It had Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. It's always been a part of True Detective is getting like these big names into
Yeah.
it. And
Sure.
even back then, they were doing sort of this grizzled, troubled detective that solves crimes, which has been done a lot. I'm thinking of
Hmm.
like I don't know, like McNulty and The Wire. I'm thinking Sipowicz and more people. I'm thinking like Dale Cooper in Twin Peaks. Like, but it still had and Twin Peaks, by the way, all over this show. It still had a sort of like melding of true crime series with like a mystical edge. Like there's something mysterious. It is a little supernatural, True Detective. That's kind of why it's popped up as like a genre show,
Oh,
even though
really?
it's not literally supernatural. It's
That's what
the
I figured.
tone is such, but maybe it is. It's they've always framed it in a way that there are like ideas being discussed that are outside human comprehension. Especially that first, it's an ambitious show. And this
But is this like a Scooby-Doo thing where it's like
they're
these
solving the
ideas
crimes.
outside of, well, it's like, ooh, is this supernatural? And then they pull off the mask and it's like, no, it was that guy, and he would have gotten away with it
No,
if it wasn't for
no,
Joe Foster.
no.
Okay.
It's never like a ghost did this and then they find the guy in the ghost mask. I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay.
It's a vibe. Especially that for it's a vibe.
Gotcha.
It's like they effectively and I think I made that first in the third season. They effectively kind of externalize the supernatural monster in every human being and turn
Ooh,
what
okay.
is sort of a story about people hunting people who do bad things to other people into a story that feels like it has a grander, almost fantasy-esque scope. Uh, and yeah,
Gotcha.
it's the show goes for it. I mean, it definitely has a cool tone, and this new season, Night Country, starring again, stars Jodie Foster, is about as big a star as they come. Of course, she has a true crime pedigree with Silence of the Lambs back in 91, 2, somewhere around there. And she's really good. And this time, the mystery is a bunch of scientists disappear from a snowy, icy Alaskan research center, end up dead on the ice. There's a mysterious uh sequence at first where they keep saying she's awake. Who's she, Daniel? A vengeful spirit who's out to get everybody? It's possible. I doubt it, but it's possible.
Find out in episode 3.
And now we've got to unravel that. I like it. I do like it, although I'm sympathetic to whoever said, let's see, who said that they were like, it was fine. Fantasy fan, didn't care for it. A lot of good comments here. I watched the whole first episode, a little bored and tired. It does feel a little tired because, and again, not just because True Detective is from the fourth season, but also because, yeah, that reason you mentioned, that the grizzled, troubled detective is a pretty old trope by this point. But it's still very well done. Jodie Foster is
Yeah,
obviously a wonderful actor. I love the setting, this kind of that it's that part of Alaska where
setting's
like
cool.
the sun doesn't show up for like all the entirety of winter. That sounds, can you imagine what it'd be to live there? Like a seasonal affective disorder, just like for months straight, but just supercharged. Because I
That'd
guess
be
we already have that
intense.
here. Yeah. What have I
Yeah,
heard?
that'd be pretty intense. Alaskan listeners, let us know what that's like.
Yes,
Um,
Alaska.
yeah, so I'm basically what I'm getting is Nicole says, was it a Yeti? So far, we don't know if it was a Yeti. And also because it takes place in Alaska during this dark period, it could cross over with 30 Days of Night, and maybe Josh Hartnett is the killer. Is that more or less accurate?
I don't know what 30 Days of Night is, but
Oh, it's a vampire movie set in the same region of Alaska, and the idea of that is the sun goes down and then the vampires come out and are like, "This is great.
nice.
30
Oh,
days.
they
We
would
can just
enjoy that.
run the place." They would. So it sounds like this season is pretty good, and a
It
lot of
is.
people saying season 1 was fantastic.
It was.
Fantasy fan says amazing first season. And I've always meant to watch at least the first season because from what I recall, it was kind of designed as a one-off, like limited series. They got Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey to do this show, and then it just did so well, I guess, that someone offered someone dump truck loads full of money to come up with more ideas for more True Detective.
We love that
Um,
dump truck.
so do you know how many episodes this season is?
6.
Oh wow, it's short. Okay. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
shorter than
the
usual for this show?
yeah, it's usually 8. That is the trend nowadays to
Gotcha.
get shorter and shorter. You want
That's
to
how you
tell
afford
Jodie
Jodie
Foster she
Foster.
has to remain in Iceland or whatever for like how many months? No, Jodie's got stuff to do.
I guess so. Okay, so it sounds like this is pretty good. This is on Max right now. And
And HBO.
HBO, is
Yeah,
it?
it's HBO
And
proper.
HBO. Okay, HBO proper, so it's not relegated to the Max
We get
archives.
to
Um, do you think you're going to watch it through the end of the season?
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's always been good. As everyone says, first season is really,
Yeah.
really good. And maybe it is a Yeti. Perhaps they're going with Supernatural this year. I'd be interested in that. And it's always well put together. Just, it's hard for a show to break out of the grizzled, troubled detective template at this point because it's so well worn. But I mean, if anybody's going
Yeah.
to do it, HBO's want to push his boundaries. I mean, we hope still. So if anyone's going to do it, perhaps True Detective can pull it off. I will watch. I'll be interested. I'll be reviewing it if anybody's interested on WiC. And maybe you'll watch along, maybe you won't. I can't control you. I don't have that power.
Well, the one thing I will say for this season of True Detective is that this is the most interesting the show has looked to me since its
Hmm,
first season. I was never
sure.
super drawn to any of the ones after Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. But I have wanted to watch this new one with Jodie Foster. Night Country. So maybe I will check it out before it's over.
It's an easy one. Another movie that took place in like I think it might have been Nova Scotia, Insomnia, with Robin Williams and
I've seen that.
Al Pacino, where it's like again
Ooh,
eternal night, and it's again a grizzled detective chasing a creepy psychopath. It just it attracts
which is
storytellers.
which? You decide.
This it attracts storytellers this kind of environment. But yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
There you out in uh internet land watching us, and what are you watching, Daniel Roman?
Um, all right. So the main thing, it's been a little bit slower of a week for me on the TV watching, alas and unfortunately. I'm still watching Percy Jackson, which I am
It's
enjoying. I
fine.
haven't seen the most recent one, which it seems like people didn't like quite as much, is what I'm gathering. Um, some kind of interesting complaints from Percy Jackson fans about the show. Um, during it's kind of interesting to me. You wrote about this today that some people aren't loving it because it's kind of slow and a little they're changing some things and kind of dragging out others, speeding through other things. And it made me think of the Benioff and Weiss interview where they basically said if we gave people a really faithful adaptation, would they even have liked it? Because they were kind of talking about the three body problem and how there's this very faithful Chinese
Right.
adaptation that didn't explode, and theirs is changing some things. And so Percy Jackson has had some discussion because there were movies which were famously not very faithful, and now there's a
Hmm.
show that is supposedly trying to be more faithful, but maybe isn't quite as exciting as the movies or isn't quite striking the balance the same way. So they kind of each have their own sorts of issues. And yeah, jury's out for me, but I am still enjoying Percy Jackson. I'm not attached to the books, so I can get away with that.
Oh yeah, neither am I. And I think it's fine. I think I said last week. It's a nice little family friendly show that isn't moving me to tears or to great peals of laughter, but I think it's fine. I looked at the Percy Jackson subreddit this morning just to kind of see if I found any nice memes or whatever, and I was amused to see people just ripping the show to shreds. I don't know if that's common in the Percy Jackson fan community or if that's just the subreddit, but they were really down on it, saying how it changed, how he should apologize. Speaking of Benioff and Weiss choosing not to criticize Game of Thrones, they were ripping author Rick Riordan for criticizing the Percy Jackson movie so often when this new show really isn't an improvement, according to these people on the subreddit. So I'm not really a part of that community, but I think it's fine. And I'll keep
Yeah,
watching. They're short episodes. Everything Disney is so
they
short.
are.
Yeah, they go down pretty easy.
I mean, yeah, they're they're aiming it slash making it accessible to kids. So
Yeah,
Percy Jackson is kind of exactly what I expected. Like, I didn't ever go into it thinking this was going to be my new favorite show.
yeah.
It's kind of a younger leaning show. Um, but I am enjoying it. I think there's a lot of really great stuff about it. I really enjoy the cast that they got for it. The sets, the vibes are all very cool.
Yeah,
Nicole says
some of the
stopped
actor
watching
cameos are
Percy.
nice.
Yeah. Nicole says it was too boring, which
Mm.
that seems to be a complaint people have had. I did really like the episode before this one with Ares. So
I
there's
did too.
that.
I thought it was one of the better ones so far.
Yeah, same. Same, same.
Um, Percy
Uh,
Jackson for me is I don't have a name for it, but it's one of those shows I will watch if I'm doing something else while I watch it. It's not really good enough to just have my attention fixed. Like I'll watch it, but I gotta be folding laundry. I gotta be doing dishes. I gotta be answering emails. Like I can't just watch that straight. It's not really interesting enough for me.
yeah,
But it's
that's
fine and
fair.
I'm glad it's out there for the fans.
I
One show
watched
that
one
I
of those last night. That was a
which
movie. I'm gonna toss it to
go
you
ahead.
real quick. I watched a good multitasking thing called Knights of the Zodiac. I don't even remember what streaming service it was on. It's a movie that's like half animated uh, kind of ridiculous. Has Sean Bean and the kid who played Roanoke Zoro from One Piece. But yeah, that's a good multitasking movie with some very ridiculous fight scenes.
That sounds familiar. Okay, maybe I'll go Google it later. Good for
I mean, I
Roanoke
wouldn't
Zora.
say it's good, but I was entertained the whole way through.
Netflix?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't
Oh,
even. I think it might have
it
been on Prime.
doesn't matter. As Nicole says, finished Echo. That was decent. I heard it was decent.
Ooh,
One thing I just finished, and
nice.
I did watch attentively, mainly because I was reviewing it, but also because I like it, was For All Mankind on Apple TV Plus, which wrapped up its fourth season this past
Cool.
Friday. Always liked this show. Always wanted to have a bit more of a reach than it does. It's this cool idea. It's like every season, it starts in the 60s and every season goes forward like a decade and explores
Hmm.
how the world would be different if the US and the Soviet Union never stopped engaging in the space race. So in this reality, we're now up to like the early 2000s, and we have a colony on Mars, and technology is a lot further along than it is in our world because when you go into space, you invent new stuff, is the uh, kind of predominant narrative. And the characters are a lot older, but they're passing it on to like their kids now, kind of taking up the mantle. It's an ambitious show, both because of it tries to engage with like how would like Earth to Mars travel really work, and because of this whole generational thing where the cast gets older and some go out, like some of the cast members who started the show aren't in it anymore because like their characters got old and died, or they are just
Yeah.
not involved in the story anymore. And then there are others who are like literally taking over. Like if this show goes 6 seasons, there's no way that anybody from the first season will be on it because they'll all be way too old. Even right now, Ed Baldwin, Joel Kinnaman, the guy in the spaceship on the right, he was like a young father in the first season in the 60s, and now he's like an old man in 2002. And they just said he'll be back in
Wow.
season 5 set in 2012. I'm like, he's gonna look ridiculous. They're gonna put like liver spots on him and make him look really silly. Um, if that happens, we don't know if season 5 yet. I like this show. I think it's good. I think it's ambitious. I think it takes big swings. And I think if people are interested in a slow burning, well made, thoughtfully written sci-fi drama, it's worth checking out. It's not perfect. It's one of those shows that kind of has an idea of what it wants to say about human progress, and then it kind of like turns its characters occasionally into puppets to like sort of say the thing at the expense of
Mhm.
having them act the way a person would in the situation. But usually, no. Usually, does a good job of balancing that out. This season, I felt a little more than in the past, but performances are all good. The ambition is there. The look is there. It's really done in a way where it builds very slowly all the time up to a big climax, which I like across 10 episodes. Always 10 episodes a season, never gotten to 8 or 6. It's always 10,
Nice.
which is nice. So yeah, if anybody is interested in, in a sci-fi drama they want to watch, um, totally something interesting to check out.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you've been enjoying For All Mankind and that you actually are caught up on it. Because like the conceit of the show is really interesting. Like that it skips decades, that it's, this alternate space race history. Um,
Totally.
it also is like it's interesting to see Apple TV um keep renewing this show, honestly. Not
Yes, it
because it's
is.
bad or anything, but because it just hasn't really broken out and it's now on its fourth season. And I think Apple has almost kind of developed like the reputation where they are like one of the streaming services that isn't going to suddenly axe a show for no reason. Maybe because they're funding all of this with like the pocket change they found under Steve Jobs' couch after he passed away or something. Like the Apple has the money to throw around at stuff and they really don't care the same way about ratings or things like that as
Mhm.
another streamer would. That's why like,
Zasla.
people talking about yeah, exactly. People talking about Killers of the Flower Moon, how it didn't really make very much at the theater and it cost them a ton of money. I
Mm-hmm.
want to say like upwards of 200 million to make
Two
that.
hundred million
But like,
dollars.
yeah, but it was really like, a kind of a clout sort of thing for the streaming service, and then
Yeah.
they just went and sold a bunch of iPads and it was fine and they could afford it. So yeah, what Robert Harris said, I love that Apple tends to give shows a chance.
It
And that
does.
is
It
really
does.
cool because a lot of shows do take a season or two to find their footing, and Apple seems to be one of the few services that isn't, going to cancel something if it just doesn't have great numbers in season one, if it seems like a promising good show. Like Foundation got renewed as well for season
Yes,
three,
it
and
did.
honestly, I wasn't sure if it was going to or not. And I did like season two of Foundation kind of more than I expected to.
It's good.
Like I'm not really familiar with Asimov's books. There are things about Foundation that I always like chuckle about, like to myself while I'm watching it, but then it'll turn around and do some really cool stuff too. So yeah, Apple is making moves here. So that's all pretty exciting, especially because they have a Murderbot TV show on the way, and I wouldn't want to
Ooh.
see that get canceled unduly. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you can
so
depend on it.
um
Nicole also
yeah.
said that she watched Monarch and that it ended about as badly as I expected, as I thought it would.
Oof.
Um,
Good
we
thing
we
Camilla's
didn't
not
watch
here.
Monarch here, thank goodness. We didn't watch Monarch, but again, that's another like big splashy show they're spending money on. Just
Yeah.
app
Oh yeah, that's an
like
Apple show, isn't it?
yeah, Apple TV Plus is like what Max and HBO used to be. Because I feel like HBO used to be the place that would take chances on
Oof.
stuff. And
Yeah.
now they've kind of become the new Netflix where they like cancel everything, like Our Flag Means Death. Julia, a show that I was watching and really liking, just got canceled. Um,
Oh, that sucks.
uh,
Warrior.
Warrior, of course, I'll never forget. Never forget. And Raised by Wolves, your favorite weird
Yes.
ass Max
Never
show.
forget. Yeah.
That's kind of they're in danger of always be canceling, becoming their new credo, which just be a
Always be
shame.
canceling. Yeah, it
ABC always
would,
be forgiven.
because it's so hard because, you know, again, this is kind of where the corporate interests and corporate difference comes into play because uh, has HBO's philosophy shifted? I feel like maybe not necessarily. Like it's still Casey Bloys kind of running HBO as far as I know, but the
Yeah.
larger company, Warner Brothers Discovery, is going through a belt tightening phase where it is specifically trying to cut stuff down. And yeah, I mean, Robert Harris will never forgive them for canceling Raised by Wolves, and I'm kind of there with him. It just seems like, you know, it's the opposite of Apple, right? They have just a giant war chest they can make all the shows with, and David Zaslav is meanwhile like canning already completed things to try to like get a tax credit. So, ugh.
I mean, again, it's one of those gross situations where he's saying we have to cut back. We have to. What would David Zaslav sound like? We have to cut back. We have to save
Oh
money. We have to
God.
cancel all these
Oh, it
shows and get
hurts.
tax credits. And meanwhile, he's pocketing like $200 million a year, which is absurd. Um,
Yeah.
that Apple thing, just really quickly, it does boggle my mind that Killers of the Flower Moon and Apple TV Plus, good movie, prestige movie, whatever, cost $200 million to make. I saw that movie. Like it didn't have a special effect in it. And meanwhile, Godzilla Minus One cost like $15 million to make, is a big special effects bonanza, and some of they saved on that. But no, better give Leonardo DiCaprio $50 million to appear in this thing. Ugh, good.
Well, so I don't know how much you know about Godzilla Minus One, but one reason that it was so cheap apparently is because of
Hmm.
Japan's labor laws that prevent, apparently they have
Always.
labor laws that like cap how much film workers can make or something like that. I don't know all the details, but that's a big part of why the budget is less. But the flip side is they put a lot of, that budget on screen.
Japan has
So
bad
yeah,
labor laws too. Everywhere has bad labor laws.
apparently, I mean, so yeah, it is definitely interesting times in the industry as a whole. I'm still kind of waiting to see if we're going to get, I think it's IATSE is up for their renegotiation this year. We could be looking at more
Oh,
strikes depending on how
ugh.
the execs handle things. At least those will be, those won't affect things that are already coming out, but things that are filming, they could, if they happen, which hopefully they won't. Um, Fantasy Fan says, I'm wondering if Wheel of
Mhm.
Time would be renewed for a season 4 on Apple. I'm really hoping Amazon renews it. Um,
Oh man, so am
do you
I,
have any
man.
opinions about Wheel of Time not being renewed? Because I have thoughts about that. I'm not worried, personally.
Okay, I mean, I haven't given it a ton of thought. I guess the first thing would be fear, but why aren't you worried?
Because from what I recall, it got a really early renewal for season 3.
Yeah.
But when it was renewed for season 3, I believe season 2 was already done filming.
Hmm.
So it was just that it was so far ahead of when it released. Like they were filming season 2 when season 1 came out.
Yeah.
Um, but right now they're still filming season 3. So that's why I'm not really like, so what if they renewed it? They wouldn't be working on it now anyway, because they still have weeks, at least weeks left of filming, from what Yosha Stradowski said in some of his
Yasha.
interviews, talking about going to South Africa to film some of the Aiel waste scenes. So I'm really hoping Amazon renews it too, but so far to me, it is not weird in the slightest that it hasn't been renewed for season 4 yet.
Okay, that's Daniel Roman with a ray of hope. Good. I can do that today.
That's my take.
I have one other show I want to
Yes.
mention. And by the way, I'm not sure if you realize this. We have about 50 people live watching us on Facebook right now. So we have some newcomers.
Hi, all.
What are you guys interested
Good
in?
to see
If
you.
anybody
Welcome.
who's not usually here wants to sound off, what are you watching? What brings you to take the black? We'd love to hear from you. Uh, Download us
Yeah.
at iTunes and stuff, and watch us wherever podcasts are available. We're here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. CST. Feel free to come on back. We have a good time here. It was interesting that you mentioned that you'd gotten rid of Max because
Yeah.
as frustrated as I can be with their cancellations, I think it's still probably my favorite streaming service. We watched this documentary, like just 3 episodes, called Love Has Won. You heard of this?
I have not.
Holy
What
crap.
is it?
It's this documentary series about a cult that kind of sprung up in the past few years. It rose and fall between 2018 and like 2020. Um, about
Okay.
this just woman who calls herself Mother God. She's God. And her and her followers went all over the country. And then she died because they kept feeding her colloidal silver to
Oh,
heal her spiritual wounds. And she was blue by the end of it. And all like the cult members are like fresh out of this. They're all going like, she was Mother God. She was going to go to the clouds that are actually spaceships in disguise. And we had to help her by pumping her full of silver. She said she wanted to go to a hospital. We said no. We know Mother God would never want to go to a hospital. And it was just, it's wild, man. It's crazy. And like
that sounds insane.
they wrapped her body in like Christmas lights, and they mummified her and kept her in like a house in Colorado or California or wherever those freaks were. And now they're all like selling herbal supplements and stuff. None of them went to jail.
You know,
Crazy
I
story. If you have some hours to kill, 3 episodes. Love Has Won. That was the name of the cult. Love Has Won. Like a new cult.
so
You don't get a lot of new cults.
let me ask you here,
Mhm.
because Nicole makes an interesting point. Max has a lot more documentaries and reality TV than dramas now, which is
Sure.
true. Like objectively true because of the Discovery merger. Like they
Yeah.
said they were going to be putting more of those types of Discovery Channel, which is now half, three-quarters reality TV and some documentaries onto Max. And it sounds like that might be jiving for you, Dan. How are you feeling about that? Because that's a huge turnoff for me personally. Like, I don't really watch any of that stuff aside from like Great British Bake Off if I'm depressed or whatever. Um, so like, has the new Max been working for you then? Because it sounds like that might be a show that is on there almost as a result of that, possibly.
I mean, I haven't looked into where Love Is One specifically come from. I would guess this is an HBO documentary, like they happen documentaries. There is a big difference between House Hunters International and this Love Has Won documentary, where it's investigative journalism, and they really go in over like this. It's not like they're not milking it. It's 3 episodes and they're in and they're out.
Yeah.
It's like a documentary
Yeah.
series, and they get all the cult members and talking heads, and they ask them these questions, and they talk to their families. It was quite chilling. Like there's a world of difference in terms of, in my opinion, quality between that and like, house flippers for rent or whatever is else on there. But yes, I mean, you're absolutely right that that Sense of Discovery merger, there's been a lot of that, I don't know, like TLC flip your broom closet kind of stuff on there. I've enjoyed the odd episode of House Hunters over however long it's been on, like the past 30 years. But no, that's not why I'm watching Max. We watched Love Is One. I loved the show Julia. I thought it was great. And they canceled it.
Yeah.
It's too bad. I watched Our Flag Means Death. Of course, I loved Warrior. I watched the John Oliver show pretty much every Sunday. Like, there's a lot keeping me coming back.
Also great.
To Max. Yeah. So it's not. I have not really partaken in the shake off your bake off of it all. Like the kind of more easy to produce reality shows, which I do know are there.
I
haven't really watched many of
them. Some great British Bake Off. You best not be shading the Bake Off.
I didn't shade it.
I love that. Okay.
This is a different show that I made up called Shake Off or Bake Off. I don't even know what the deal's with that one.
I see. Okay. Andrew says Love Has Won is an HBO original doc from last year. Good to know, Andrew. Thank you. JP says also Curb Your Enthusiasms last season. Yes. You cannot argue that. I will probably tune in to see Larry David in another season of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
And True Detective I'm watching. So like Max does provide me things I want to watch, and it really always has.
For me to have a streaming service, I really need some kind of genre shows drawing me there. I'm kind of coming to realize this about myself. Like this is how I like my natural response to just this time we're living in, where there are so many streaming services and they're all getting gradually shittier by introducing ads and all of these sorts of things. It's the enshittification of the streaming services. If you're not familiar with that term,
thank you, that
Cory
guy.
Doctorow. Yeah, Cory Doctorow coined that, talking about social media and how they, once they get you in the door, they gradually make the service worse. So for me, like there are so many of them that it's really like when there is a show that I know I need to watch on one of them, I will go on them and then I'll explore other stuff.
Sure.
Maybe except for Netflix. That's kind of the one that's just always on.
Yeah, it's always so much. I really want to watch the other two on Max. I'm not like you. Like I don't need a genre thing, I guess, to get me there. Like I want to watch the other two because I've heard that's great. Also got canceled. I still got to watch South Side. That's a really good show on Max, which they also canceled. Yeah. And eventually, I think they'll run out because they're kind of canceling the things I'm interested in. My guilty pleasure is The Gilded Age. It is 100% my guilty pleasure.
Nice.
I feel bad about it. I feel guilty about liking it because it's gaudy rich people, talking about how you couldn't possibly marry Mr. Fingerbottom. He's below you in terms of your class, but something about it just kind of sucks me in. So I like a lot of it. But eventually, if they keep canceling things, there's not going to be as much to draw me in. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Cool.
Yeah, totally. And it sounds Fargo. Like you've got a little bit of... Yeah, me too. I haven't seen it. And honestly, the fact that it's Noah Hawley, who I really don't know much about, but he's making an Alien show. So now I feel like I need to know him. He's practically family if he's making Alien. But yeah, so maybe I'll watch Fargo at some point. But yeah, lots of good stuff. And then there's Echo. That's the main other show that's on right now in our kind of space. And I've seen the first two. I didn't watch more yet, but I am looking forward to watching more of Echo before next week.
I also, someone else said, Rick Garfield, I agree. Max is best streaming service. Hacks is also a great show. I love that show. Hacks is a good show on Max, comedy. So yeah, they have good stuff. I'm just afraid they're going to run out eventually. Oh, and Robert Harris, I think you said that House Hunters International was a good show. Listen, No need to be ashamed of it. I've enjoyed House Runs with the best of them. We've all done it.
Yep, same. We've all been
We,
there. We
we've
all
all
enjoy
watched
it.
it, and we've like looked at the people who say like, I don't like the paint color, and they're like, well, then paint over it, like you're buying the place. I've liked it as much as anybody has, and there's no shame in liking House Hunters. Okay, we're going a little long because we have so many new people in here, and I wanted to see if any of them wanted to sound off. If you're new in here in the Facebook chat, sound off. What brings you around here? I'd be curious to know. We talk all the time. But let's move on to the WiC News Lightning Round, which we do every single time on the show. We go over some stories from the
Yes.
past week that we couldn't fit into the main body of the show, give our 20-second opinions. No exceptions, except
Indeed.
for when there are. All right. I arrange these in some kind of way. And I think I'm going to ask you first.
Okay.
uh,
Hit me with it.
Daniel, my, Millie Alcock, who played young Rhaenyra Targaryen in House of the Dragon, is up for the role of Supergirl in the new DC cinematic universe.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So this is James Gunn's DC Cinematic Universe, and she is one of the people who is reportedly, I believe, in contention for the role. We know that Gunn or someone he's going to hire is making a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie. I'd watch Millie Alcock as Supergirl. I think that's
Huh.
an interesting casting.
Coach.
Yeah. Um, all right, Dan. So
Yeah.
writer Alex
Uh-huh.
Garland and director
Yeah.
Danny Boyle are re-teaming to make the zombie sequel movie 28 years later.
28 days later. Then there was 28 months there, which didn't involve either of them, except like producers. And then 28 years later, quite a long time later, 28 days later, important zombie movie. It kind of like it was responsible for like the big zombie craze we saw with The Walking Dead and
Mm-hmm.
World War Z and all that stuff. I mean, not responsible for, but had like a big thing and pushing it forward. So it matters that these two are getting back
Yeah,
together to do something new. Good for them. I'll watch it. Hey, Daniel, here's something I did
yeah.
not see coming.
Wait. Can I just note this? Can I just note
Yes.
this? So
Go ahead.
apparently there is no 28 months later. There's 28 days, 28 weeks. And then they
Weeks.
skipped
Sorry.
months and went straight to years.
Gotcha.
So
Sorry.
what
28
happened
weeks.
in those 28 months, we'll never know. I just think that the titles are funny.
Me too.
Sorry.
28
Yes, what's
centuries
next?
later, 28 decades. Okay.
That's right.
This, I did not see this news coming. The Witcher season 4, The Witcher kind of a show, I don't know, in slight peril. Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus himself, is joining the cast of The Witcher season 4 as a character named Regis. Daniel, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Regis is a really important Witcher character. Some mild spoilers here. He is a vampire who hangs out with Geralt. Fans of the game will know him. We heard a while back that Netflix was looking for a seasoned veteran older actor to play the part. I think Lawrence Fishburne could do an amazing job with this role. He's not quite what I pictured for Regis, which was more of like a Mads Mikkelsen type of actor. But I'm intrigued.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, Dan. So Kit Harington opens up about his ADHD diagnosis and rehab.
Yeah,
What's the
Kit
deal with
Harington
that?
gave a pretty big interview where he talked about because we knew that he gone into rehab after the end of Game of Thrones, kind of feeling just a lot of pressure from the show. Apparently, he went twice. I didn't know that. He went once, got sober, and then went out
Oh, I didn't know
and then
either.
came back. And I think that's when he got diagnosed with ADHD. Good for him, getting the help he needs. Yeah, and now he has two kids and a wife is married to a Gret, and they're doing good. Good for him. Good for them. Daniel, speaking of your cousin Noah Hawley, Noah
Yes.
Hawley's Alien show will ignore all the alien lore that was delivered onto us in the movies Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Just going back to the source. What do you think of that?
I think it's kind of I could see some people maybe being a little perturbed by it, but I think it's a good decision. Because he basically said that this idea that the xenomorph was like this bioweapon was less interesting than this idea that it evolved in space, which is kind of just like what the fans assumed for like decades. He's also using the style from the original Alien movies instead of the more polished, like
Sure.
iStore Apple gadget style of Prometheus. So I think some promising updates there. Um, all right, Jennifer Coolidge of the White Lotus fame will
Yeah.
star in the Minecraft movie.
I mean, thank God. Jennifer Coolidge, who is, oh, I'm just loving the late career bloom Jennifer Coolidge is
Wonderful.
having. So happy to be getting all these roles and to really be making everybody so happy around the world. These gays are trying to murder me. And she'll be starring with Jason Momoa and Jack Black, where she belongs. So good for her.
Fun, very fun. It's
All
got a
right.
good cast, that movie so far.
I don't know what to think. I don't play Minecraft. Ask me nothing.
Suspiciously good.
Here's a cool one that I would actually partake in this. So ahead of Dune Part 2, which comes out in March, they're going to release the 1984 Dune movie starring Kyle MacLachlan by David Lynch into theaters for a couple of days in February. Interested?
Yeah, I'm totally interested. So this is not affiliated with Dune Part 2. This is it's Fathom Events is the company, and they're running Dune in select theaters for 2 days in February 18th and 19th, which is like 2 weeks ahead of Dune Part 2, which is March 1st. Yeah, I totally want to go see this.
Me
I
too.
obviously was too young to see it the first time because I was not born when it was in
Ditto.
theaters. So yes, sign me up.
Love some David Lynch.
All right, Dan, David Lynch, our final lightning round news story of the day. Some maybe bad news for Marvel fans. Tatiana Maslany, who played Jennifer Walters / She-Hulk, says she doesn't think She-Hulk season 2 is going to happen.
Yeah, I know that they've been reevaluating things there over at Marvel. Maybe this throw everything we have against the wall and see what sticks approach wasn't the best idea. And
Yeah,
She-Hulk was I didn't dislike. I thought it was okay. I didn't
I
think it was
enjoyed it.
great though, and I know it costs so much money for like a pretty slight show, so I guess I'm not surprised they're gonna have to think about like we just can't keep doing this. It's just no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our show, everybody. Uh, as I mentioned, we do this every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Winter is Coming YouTube page and the Winter is Coming Facebook page. We're also available to listen to in podcast form wherever podcasts are available. iTunes, Google Play, other. Thanks for showing up today. Thanks for talking with us. And for everybody out there who isn't usually here, come on back. Come on down. It's always a good time. We love talking with you guys. We love sharing our opinions. We love hearing yours. And as we get closer to House of the Dragon, you don't want to miss it because who knows when new news will break right here, right now on this show. Come back next Wednesday or you'll regret it.
Take care, all.